Well, I've exchanged global target offers today that represent significant movement on both our sides. We're still significant ways apart, and we'll have to take that up next. But I just would point out, and of course, I don't question their numbers and their choice of priorities, but of a $1.5 billion surplus remaining, $1.247 billion of that will apply to reduce revenues for the transportation bill and for the tax bill. So that's 83% of the remaining surplus that would be taken in reduced income for the state, reduced revenues, and would go to transportation and taxes at the expense of, in my view, education in particular and other areas. So that's where our significant difference, most significant difference still rests, and we'll take it from there. But appreciate they made a sincere offer, and we made a very sincere offer this morning. I appreciate they recognize that as such, and we'll proceed. Senator?
Well, I think one of the problematic things is their number on transportation is still the same number that the governor just vetoed. They haven't moved on that. We have always been resistant to use general fund money for transportation and compete with everything else in the state budget, like child care and education and higher ed and nursing homes. It's not the place for general fund money, and it's not sustainable in the long run. I mean, people could, if they did that, maybe could claim a victory lap, we'd fix a few roads, and we'll come back here 2 years from now, and it's not sustainable because it'll just never compete with the other areas of the state budget. So disappointed they haven't moved off it, that they're still at the same number that the governor already previously vetoed.
I have nothing to add.
Questions?
Governor, is the goal of the license tab fee that you proposed today to prevent that kind of shift away from the general fund?
That kind of total drain, yes, and to balance our budget, which we've done for both the next biennium and the following one. And again, with the size of the tax bill that they're talking about, not to mention the one that we've proposed, there just isn't any room in our judgment for the $372 million revenue drain to go for transportation for the reasons Senator Bakk just expressed. And Commissioner Franz, first thing this morning, went through the uncertainty of the forecast, given that it's for 24 months that hasn't even begun yet, as well as the kind of shift in revenues that would occur if we were in even a modest recession. So, my number one priority is to protect the fiscal stability of the state, which we worked very hard to earn back. And I'm not going to see that sacrificed. And I would say that we need to ask, we will ask the legislature for their tales for the effect of particularly the tax bill and the transportation, but particularly the tax bill in the next 2021 biennium, because that's got to be a significant consideration as well.
And you're leaving the tab fee in, you're not taking that out at this point?
Not at this point.
You consider it?
Well, the House proposed it last year. We took the idea from the House Republican majority last year. I don't understand what they're, we believe that raising additional revenue, new revenue for transportation is a much healthier response to the situation than taking money from the general fund, not stealing, but taking money from the general fund. As Senator Bakk just said very well, is going to be suspect at the next economic downturn. The one thing that the contractors and others who build the highways and the roads and bridges say they need is a strong assurance, virtually a guarantee, that the money that's committed is going to be there in not just the next year or 2 years, but down the roads. If they're going to buy new equipment, if they're going to hire additional crews to take on and increase the workload, they want to make sure that that money's going to be there down the road.
So you're not taking license tab fees off the table yet?
We're not taking anything off the table. We made an offer this morning, and they've made their offer. We didn't ask them to take anything off the table. They haven't made their offer. We've made ours. Now we need some time to go out and assess, look at the details of their offer.
You going to get you later tonight then?
I don't know. We need to talk about that when we have a chance to go upstairs and discuss this among ourselves. We talked about tomorrow morning. One of the first things we need to do is reconcile our different numbers on the Health and Human Services and on the assumptions that we're making, as well as the actual dollars that are being reduced. So we've asked, I'm going to ask Commissioner Piper and our staff and Senator Benson and Representative Dean and whoever they want to bring in addition to try to reconcile that difference. It was about $130 million, and then you got the Healthcare Access Fund playing into that between the two. So if we could get that number narrowed down, I think we then have a much clearer picture of where what difference actually remains. So and that doesn't preclude tonight. We haven't looked at that, but that would be our starting point. We agreed that would be our starting point for tomorrow morning.
The Real ID Conference Committee is meeting tonight, and I understand they're going to pass a version of the bill that was similar to what passed in the Senate the second time around, and potentially put the driver's license for immigrants language in another omnibus bill. Would it be acceptable to you to have the Real ID like the Senate version, and would an omnibus bill with that driver's license issue in it be veto bait?
Well, I'd have to see the Real ID bill, but if it's got broad bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate, then we have to have a Real ID bill passed in this session, or Minnesotans aren't going to be able to get on commercial airplanes next January. I don't think any of us want to be responsible for that. They did move in the conference report the version of the language on unlicensed, undocumented immigrants licenses to the public safety bill unnecessarily. I mean, I have said this until I have said it to them. I've said it publicly. We do not, under existing statute, have the authority, neither the governor's office or the Department of Public Safety, to make any changes without in the license area without the prior approval of the legislature. That language is totally unnecessary. It's just a pandering to the extreme right-wing base of their political party. It's just unnecessary, and it's caused all of these snafus and delays. And I again think it's just absolutely unnecessary.
Unnecessary and unacceptable, or unnecessary but something you could swallow?
Unnecessary and unacceptable because also it's a policy matter in a budget bill. And I've said before, I'll say it again, if we focus, and we have now 6 days remaining after today, if we focus on these budget issues and resolve the differences that we have still remaining on the budget, which I'm very confident we can do by the close of the legislative session next Monday, we'll achieve what Minnesotans are entitled to, which is to have the legislative session concluded on time. If they're going to add in all the policy, we haven't even begun to discuss all the policy provisions that are lathered into these different budget bills. If we're going to get into that, I see no way we'll finish next Monday, and in fact, we'll be hard-pressed to finish by June 30th. So, it's really going to be up to them whether they're willing to focus the budget bills on the budgets, which is what they should be, or whether they're going to insist on taking up all these policy measures. The education bill is 4 pages of appropriations and about 120 pages of policy added thereafter. The state government's bill is about 25 pages of budget items, appropriations, and 120 pages of micromanaging the functions of the executive branch of state government thereafter. I mean, these bills, and again, we're focused on the first part as we need to be. I mean, we haven't even touched these hundreds of pages of policy matters that they've inserted into these budget bills. If they want to present those issues, then let's have those as standalone bills, either the rest of this session or next session. All of them remain before the legislature next session. Most of them can certainly wait until then. And as I say, if there is really going to be their decision, if they want to finish on time next Monday, then let's focus on the budget, real ID, a couple of the things, bonding bill, get it resolved. If they don't, if they're going to insist on bringing all the policy into these discussions, there's just no way. There's just no feasible way we could get that resolved by next Monday.
Governor, speaking of bonding bill, was that part of the global negotiations, and are you encouraged that the House has moved up to 800 million?
Encourage the House moved up to 800. I'll let Representative Hortman talk about that. However, it's not nearly adequate, and you know, the Senate is over $1 billion. I'm over $1 billion, but you know, the House needs DFL voters, so I'll let you address that.
You know, I think what's important is that the public sees the entire delete all amendment that's proposed to the bonding bill, and that everybody gets a chance to read it and make sure there are no errors and the spreadsheet matches the bill. And so my caucus doesn't have a lot of interest in voting for something on faith that it will get fixed later. So I think let's get it right. Let's pass a bill off the House floor that the Senate can concur with and get it right to the governor's desk.
Governor, you made a $46 million or so concession on public safety. They're still a long way away from the legislature. Does that effectively doom the Chief Justice's request?
Our proposal we submitted this morning has the courts exactly where they requested. And I've said to the legislature, I don't think they or I have any business interposing our opinions on the best judgment of the Chief Justice, who has to administer this vast court system, which is increasingly overloaded by clientele. And every one of those dollars to support that system is in my judgment, essential. So we have kept it as requested, and I will insist upon that.
Do you feel closer on any particular bill? What's the next one you think you might take off?
We agree. We sort of settled that close to that next week. They accepted. We proposed the midpoint between their number and ours, and so we agreed on that 4.9 some million. And then if the commissioner and their chairs can work out the couple of issues that remain on the license fees and the pesticide restriction, which is also related to the license. So it is related to the budget. If they can work that out, then we'll have agreement on that.
So is that going to be your policy from here on? You let the chairs and your commissioners work out the differences like you were on ag?
Well, we'll see, but related to the budget, but not on the whole realm of all this vast policy.
And most of the ag provisions you talked about are tied to budget.
The license fees, the license fee, fees, whatever. Fees are definitely, and the other is too, because it relates to the Department of Agriculture's financial ability to carry out or not carry it out. So.
Is that what you're talking about on the other one?
Well, different people have different views of what we're talking about, so I'm not going to tread into that one. But
can you clarify what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the provision in their bill that we believe takes away the statutory responsibility of the Department of Agriculture to regulate and to enforce regulations, which are federal regulations on the use and application of pesticides.
And is there anything else in that bill, since it's the one that you almost have closed up, that people should know about? Again, I think we reached a reasonable midpoint. It's a relatively small bill. In 2011, the ag bill was passed overwhelming bipartisan support with about a month left in the session. So
this is an important step, but it's not instructive about how the rest of it's going to turn out.
Aside from questions of policy, once you get past this debate about round numbers, what's your level of concern about getting tripped up in the details of which programs get how much money?
Well, we're going to go through that. Our global offer has a backup sheets, which we're prepared to go through with them, that detail where that money goes. So, for example, E12, where the previous offer was $372 million, and our calculation, or the Department of Education calculation on a 2% formula increase is $371 million. So right away, de facto, if they're going to agree to 2%, which I've heard preliminary indications they will, that's it. Now they come up to this $408 million, so there's a little room there, but I certainly want to know, what they're proposed to do and not do based on that overall target number. So we'll have to get into those details, and that's a big part of what we're going to have to work out with the tax bill and with the other spending bills.
Have you lowered your request for a preschool expansion, or is that still at $75
For
million?
preschool? Yeah. It's still $175 million. We brought it down, what did we bring it down to? 100, I put 100, no, 100? We brought it down to 100 million, so we dropped it by from 175 million to 100 million.
Can we get a copy of that backup sheet?
Sure.
Thank you.
So you moved about $800+ million off of your original
$852
offer.
million. Right?
What was the original offer? I've been trying to track that number down.
Well, the budget that I presented in January, with the modifications that were made after in the February forecast.
So it's 1.2 or 1.9. I've seen two different numbers, and I've been able to figure out which is which. The original offer, your original offer.
Which budget area?
The overall. The increase I'm talking about, the spending increase.
I don't know.
I don't want to hold the percentage.
I don't know what either of those numbers said.
1.65 was the
Oh, the surplus. We actually agreed that we agree on the starting point. We had 1.65, and then we spent money for the reinsurance. So we actually we both had the starting balance of what was it, 1.502. So we agree on the starting point. We just don't agree yet on the ending point. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Can you ask your staff, let us know if you're going to go back in?
Sorry?
Can you ask your staff to let us know if you're going back in tonight or after you huddle?
I think for your sake, probably midnight to 3. We're in the last week now. We got to get this thing jazzed up. It's all over now. Okay. Mr. Bakk has requested that we meet from 12 midnight to 3.